Playing with Inference, a podcast about the intersection of generative AI and games. Today we are discussing the role of AI on puzzle games.
And as a guest, we have Tomi Huttila, CEO and co-founder of Cosmic Lounge, which is a puzzle game meets AI startup. Prior to Cosmic, Tomi has served at King, EA, Kabam in technology product leadership roles, and we're really excited to have a chance. Before we got things started, I was saying this is the second time I've bumped into you, both times remotely on a kind of venue like this where we're talking about AI and games, so it's great to see you again. I hope that everything's been going well for the last 2 years.
It's been busy and exciting and fun, and it's great to see you again, Aaron. And topic is about similar things. It's using AI for creating games. One of my favorite topics.
For those who aren't familiar with Cosmic Lounge, why don't we, Ramona and I said a few things, but I'd love to hear a little bit from your perspective, and then we'll just dive in.
All right. So Cosmic Lounge, a startup based in Finland. We have now about 20 people. We had 6 founders, and the company wasn't actually founded to do something with AI. And if you go back in time, March 2022, there wasn't any sort of big AI boom at that time. The whole thing started from us 6 veterans of game development, and especially in puzzle games, talking about why are we always doing this and this or repeating these mistakes in creating these kind of games, and why so many projects fail, and why is it so hard to make hit games. And that's where the whole thing started, from asking ourselves questions like, if we would be able to change everything of how these kind of games are made, how would we do it? And with that, then we started listing what are the sort of biggest problems we see, and then started, of course, coming up with solutions. And that's where we started. And one of the things what we decided to do is build our own technology. We are not licensing it. We call it Puzzle Engine. And that's when also the AI came into picture. We realized that Puzzle Engine handles all the development, actually prototyping, development, operations of puzzle games. But we realized that if we actually start using this kind of AI model here or that kind of AI model for this use case, we realized that it's giving a huge boost for a lot of the things what we wanted to solve. So that's how we got with AI. And I would say that from very early on, so we've been an AI native studio.
You said the things we wanted to solve. What did you want to solve?
So what we wanted to solve, one of the big problems always is like, how do you know if an idea is a good idea? And often studios have sort of 2 options, like they copy what others have done, which then leads to other problems. It's hard to differentiate when your game looks the same or is exactly the same than someone else has done already. Or then the other option is that you take an idea that you haven't tested, and then you put a team behind it, especially if you're doing casual games, which take, or any bigger game that you need to develop for several months. Then that's totally time wasted if you realize when you go for soft launch that this was a bad idea. So what we wanted to solve is that, gaming is a creative industry like music. It's very hard to put any sort of measures beforehand, like let's make a more economic game or let's make a faster game. The only measure is it more fun. And the only way to find out if it's more fun is that you have something playable, something prototyped, and you give it for test users. And that's how you find if an idea is a good idea. So we decided to have a technology that gives no-code toolset for designers, and they are able to test a lot of different game mechanics. Then other areas that we wanted to also solve, something what we've seen many times is that if often you tend to leave the technology problems for later. Yeah, let's just get the game out. And then you often, sort of dead-end situations, it's very hard to change the game or very hard to operate it or very hard to do a lot of other things. So we decided to take the time to decide what is the technology, how do we operate the games. We want to create a portfolio of hit games. So from the beginning, that was the idea. Like, we want to make things reusable. We want to have the right technology and don't regret hurrying up on wrong things too early. Then there's one thing specific for puzzle games is that they require a lot of content, especially levels. So some of the games, like, they have 20,000 levels, and that's always been a bottleneck. And so we wanted to make it as automated as possible, still having level designers, but the things that you can accelerate we wanted to make it a real factory, work in a real factory mode.
Mm.
And then there's, of course, areas like just there's a lot of stuff in the tech quality, but let's not go there. But then marketing is another area. That's always really hard. It's getting more expensive and harder to differentiate. So our angle for that was realizing that a lot of ads which are working really well, they have some sort of mini game or some game that you really want to try. With the same technology that we were able to do core puzzle games, new kind of mechanics, we are using with our marketing team to make mini games that we use in ads. So we don't have any fake ads. So whatever ad about our game, you will always get that game, mini game in the actual application. And that is giving lower CPI without the retention loss of disappointed players who think that they were misled to install the game. So those are some of the things that we did very differently.
I love this because this is already like a good laying out the field of the areas where you're tackling with AI, because you have testing ideas early, game mechanics with no code. I love that, and we can touch on that a bit. Actually, I'll try poke this just to repeat here. Then you were talking about generating the puzzles. So a factor. So one of the things that I've heard quite a bit is rethinking how you produce content such that it's a bit of an assembly line where you, or not an assembly, but like a factory to mass produce content where you combine human and AI cog, so to say. And then the marketing differentiator, I've seen a couple, but it's interesting to touch on the like playable ads. I would like to touch a little bit on the testing ideas early, because that's such a key part in game development. And I wonder, what is the minimum, like, what are the, in your case, what is the level of fidelity that you need to get before you can test an idea? And how much of it did you get speed up by AI? And how much is still, you can't count on the AI to do that? You still need the humans to pitch in.
Yeah. So I think we actually tested a lot for our first game. So core game was just one of them, but we also done a lot of testing for art style and the meta game design and the theme and everything. But if we go to the core game testing, so the biggest sort of enabler for fast creation of prototypes was the game architecture. In Puzzle Engine, the no-code tools allow you to configure a game mechanic. Like you have an idea in your head, and we really wanted to support not just match-3 type of games, but almost any kind of puzzle games. And we made our APIs extensible. So if you need to write code, you can also write codes to extend it. And we found out that even with, I think it was when we did classic match-3 on top of the engine, I think it was 100 lines of code. But then the more functionality we add there, then pretty quickly on a situation where you don't need to do any code, you just do configuration and then just come up with new ideas. So it was the biggest sort of enabler of fast testing was the architecture, where you allow designers to configure what the game mechanics are and then try out quickly themselves. One part of AI is art. If you want to make a decent looking prototype that you can market test, you of course need to have art assets. And we started very early actually using AI for art and actually integrate it into Puzzle Engine. So from the same tool where you actually configure the game logic, you can generate on the spot, like at least placeholder art assets, so you have something working and you can actually test it even with the target audience. So the AI, that was like one part of AI there. We probably want to talk more about, can you make AI to create actual game logic or game mechanics? That's one topic, like really interesting topic. But when we started testing our first game, like usually game companies don't have a sort of problem of too few ideas. Usually you already loads of ideas, and then it's just about, can you make it functional to actually see if it's a good idea? For that part, I think it was mainly the art side of AI and then the technology and the different architecture that really accelerated. And then in addition to that, we actually came up with a really good testing method where we were able to, no, I can reveal it, what it is. So we made a Google Play application, which was a game, and we started actually acquiring users to the game. But what they didn't know is that they're all playing a different core game. And we were just running 2-week cycles of adding new core games and made like a tap to blast mechanic, because we were able to do it easily, classic match 3, and then a lot of new ideas. And we were making them compete against each other and took the worst ones out, put new ones in. So it was actually a really good pipeline to test the ideas. And now we're doing the same thing in the game for mini games. And now the testing framework is actually the game.
For puzzle games, if we can just talk about puzzle games in general first.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Match 3, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. What else, when you say puzzle game, could you give a sense of what that means to you? Because some folks may have some different ideas. And then I also want to talk about the player experience on puzzle games, because there's a few questions I have on there too.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we define a puzzle game? Actually, let's start from what are the most common revenue-generating puzzle game types. There's classic match 3, which you all probably know. Then there's tap to blast, like any kind of blast game where you tap one block and then anything that's connected with same color is matched. Then there's line matcher is one of them. So you draw a line to connect something. And then merge is a puzzle game. So you merge different things like a merge 2, merge 3. And actually those, when we started, we were looking at like what kind of game designs are actually making all the money. And I think we estimated that about 80% of the IAP revenue for puzzle games comes from those four sort of game mechanics. And that sort of brought us, made us think about, it can't be true that there's only 4 designs of puzzle games that you can make money with. But the problem really is that if you don't have a way to test them, you can.
So, this is why this is good, because I want to ask. First off, I should have worn my Puzzle and Dragons t-shirt, because I played so much of that game for a period of time. Puzzle and Dragon was one of my favorites for a long time.
Yeah.
And what I'm wondering is, from the kind of player market, so to speak, right? What we see is that there are a couple of behaviors I'm not sure about. Do people just consume a game and then move on to the next one? Or, for example, Puzzle and Dragons, I played a lot of that game, right? And so is it, I need more once I'm in a game, I stay with it, I just need more content? Like, as a game developer, I guess what I'm asking is, do you need to build more content for a single game? Do you need to make lots of games? And is it really about mechanics? Because that's the other question I had, was like, is it more just about, I like a touch to blast game, but I like dogs versus I like cats. And it's really just about the theming of the mechanics as opposed to actually new mechanics. Okay. So I'm sorry if these are basic questions, but it helps me understand.
Great. Yeah. Yes. Typically puzzle games, they are divided into 3 categories. So there's hyper casual, and then there's hybrid casual, and then there's casual. And then there might be like RPG puzzle or something, but let's stay in these 3. Hyper casual, they are games that you've probably seen a lot of ads about them, something which looks really cool, like you want to try it, and they have almost no meta game at all. And maybe the mechanic is something that you don't want to keep on playing. At some point you get fed up, but you really want to install it, you want to try it. And there, usually the sort of business model is ad-based. So but you can do, because they look so cool, you not try them, CPIs are lower, but then people leave pretty sooner than for, let's say, casual games. And so it really depends on some of the, you probably don't see like a match 3 mechanics for hyper casual, but that's like the general idea of hyper casual, something that you really want to play, but you want to try it. Yeah, exactly. And then the other end, which is casual games, and I think it's sometimes even clarified for that some casual games have a deep meta. And these, let's say, Merge and Classic Match 3 and Tap to Blast, they are game mechanics that people want to keep on playing. Usually it's the sort of puzzle game players, they usually go for relaxation rather than competing. And now some of these casual games, they are getting more and more deeper and deeper meta to keep players involved there. And then there's the third category called hybrid casual, and it's a mix of both. So it has some meta, but it's still something more new kind of mechanic that people want to try it. So there's both. There are games that you play a little bit, and then there's games that you play for a long time. And then just to add to this, thing. This, when I mentioned mini games, casual games, they can have games inside them, and they are usually called mini games. And that's a sort of way of you to try to get people to install the game and then start playing the actual core game, because that retains better.
To reframe, going back to Ramon's question, like the problems then, because the reason I want to ask a little bit is to help me understand like the problems that this genre has that you're trying to solve. And you mentioned, though, one of them is just that, so there's only so many common mechanics, but hey, maybe there are others, and you want to play and you want to explore those easily, cheaply.
Correct. That's right. And now in recent year, I would say there's been more and more new kind of mechanics coming in there, 3D sword and tile matcher, like Mahjong type of games, and then others. But then if you think about basic sort of product strategy, if you want to differentiate, or you can try to copy, but also differentiating is usually good, but you need to know that you have something what people actually like. So it's not enough to be just different, it has to be something good. But when the first company who does that, the first studio who comes up with a new mechanic and new design, and they can take that space and they can take bigger part of the cake. So that's the whole idea, like trying to find new things that others haven't yet done, be the first one there, and then move on already to the next one. And that's what we are doing. Leverage the first mover advantage, come up with the new mechanics, and keep on searching better ones.
When you talk about new mechanics, do you mean entirely different from the top 4 you're talking, or?
Absolutely, exactly. Imagine like when Merge came. So when there were no Merge games, when you are the first one doing a Merge game, you are in a pretty good spot. And so there's continuously new mechanics coming up. Some of them disappear, some of them stay smaller, but there's continuously new mechanics coming up, and it's about, can you find a good new mechanic? But obviously there must be more than 4.
And Puzzle Engine then is really about giving if I'm going to try to explain it again, just make sure I understand, is about giving designers a faster way to iterate through this design space.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's right. So the designer has an idea like, I think this kind of puzzle game mechanic would be really fantastic. So from that moment, they can go to Puzzle Engine, configure the logic, generate the art, and have it actually playable in a couple of hours. Right. And then if that feels like, yes, this was a great idea, or okay, now then I can actually play it myself, I realized how bad the idea is, and then you can move on. And then we have for example, the process I described, then to test it with a target audience. Right. And so you can take it further. And same thing what we are doing with minigames. Designers and marketing team, they are doing the same thing. I think if there would be an ad with this kind of mechanic and that would be inside the game, I think we would get a lot of more users, more cheaper. So there's continuously the same kind of thing going on. We're trying to come up with new and even more compelling mechanics, and then build them quickly, test them, and use them or not.
So you've been working in this space for a little while. Do you have a rough sense of how, like, even just, I don't know if you can share this, but even like roughly how much faster using Puzzle Engine, like how much faster is it for a designer compared to what it was before, of that like ability to iterate and everything?
All right. If we talk about indie developers is another thing, but if we talk about like a typical game studio, somebody has an idea of a new mechanic, they pitch the idea to somebody, and what it usually means, like, hey, I would need one artist, and I would need an engineer too, because I have this fantastic idea. And usually the situation is that all the artists and all the engineers, they already occupy building or something that the leadership thinks are going to generate money. So every game company has a lot of creative people with a lot of ideas that never see the light of day. You never know if that idea is a good idea.
That is very, very true.
Like how much faster? So it would be like,
okay.
Yeah,
right.
So that's the thing. Are you able to try a lot of different things? But also, if you would have the artist and if you would have the engineer, I would say that it's still 50 times faster.
Okay. Were you able to go to Gamescom this year last week?
No, I wasn't there this year. We actually just closed the funding round. Now I'm taking a break of talking to investors and do the actual job. Yeah.
Right. Good. The reason I ask is because I did not go this year either, but one of the roundups that I was looking at, so at the time of recording, Gamescom was just the last week, and was saying, okay, AI, people are talking about AI, but the main way that people are talking about it, and just in general, the main way people are talking about is how do we make games cheaper and faster? That seemed to be the theme that this one reporter was talking about for Gamescom. And I just want your kind of take on that from like your sense of the same, like clearly that seems to be the thing that you're also looking for. You also feel it.
No, somewhat, but I have a different view on this. Yeah. So they usually say that you can choose two of the three of cost, speed, and quality. But you can't choose three. And now with AI, you can choose all three. So let's start from there.
Okay.
So you can use AI, depending on what your use case and your purpose is. You can make things cheaper. You can make things with better quality. And with that, actually for us, it means you can try more and then find out which works better. And then you can, of course, make things faster. So I think this is a good analogy of, are you going to make things cheaper? Anyway, so I think customer service is going to be changing and is changing all the time. Yes. So let's say that you have 10 customer service agents. You can decide to get rid of the 9 and have the one doing the same service with AI, or you can just so far maybe even against, you can't serve all your customers. You only serve the ones which spend a certain amount of money. You can decide that you keep the 10 guys and then just provide really good service. So it's really up to you. What do you want to do with AI? Like, what kind of problem do you want to solve? It's not just about making things cheaper, but yes, in practice, what does it give an opportunity for smaller companies like startups like us, that we can do things with a smaller team? Mm-hmm. So we are not limited by, hey, we can't design that kind of game because it requires so much content that you can't afford to have a huge team of artists or things like that. But I'll actually add one thing here. AI is a tool, and you can make really good tools with AI, but you still want to have the best team. And I would say that for game development side, AI is currently changing significantly every area of game development. Mm. But you still need an expert, like actual game expert of every field, to work with AI. Like otherwise, you're just going to have a lot of bad stuff. So in that sense, it's been discussed a lot. Is AI going to take people's jobs? I think that there's still a really big need for people who know what they're doing on every area of game development. And then we just want to give them the best people, the best tools. And these days, often that means with AI.
I love that take. I love the idea. So obviously the cost, quality, speed, being able to improve on all those axes is good. I'm particularly interested on the faster, because the idea of testing a ton of concepts and designs quickly seems very compelling. I'm wondering, when you talk about this puzzle engine, you talk about it in a sense of configuring. So when you think about configurations, you imagine that there's already a well parameterized system behind the scenes. So that sounds a little bit of like we already have set what's a family of games or mechanics that we can produce with this puzzle engine. But I presume that with AI, you can be a bit more flexible. So one of the questions here is like, how much of this is like a vibe coding, like a tool like Lovable, and how much is this like a preset design puzzle engine where you're really just playing with parameters?
Yeah, actually, great topic. When we do prototypes with Puzzle Engine, they are running on the engine which is tested well, which means that when somebody creates a prototype with that, it's mostly production quality functionality. And if you compare it to a lot of other prototyping, or even with AI assisted, like you can put something together to try the prototype, try the idea, but usually that's all throwaway stuff. Mm-hmm. So what is different with the sort of well-designed and well-tested platform is that there is a clear interface, and you have a, let's say, it's more managed system, which when you create a prototype on that, then the steps from after that are much easier. than redeveloping everything again after you just have a throwaway prototype. So that's one aspect of it. But can you say you had some other things in your? Can you repeat what was the question?
Yeah. So I'm just curious to see like how much flexibility are you giving the designers when they do? Because if we're testing new mechanics, you probably are pushing the frontier of what a puzzle game looks like, or like what are the mechanics. So I'm curious, especially now that I know that this is like production level quality outputs, I'm curious what are the limitations, if there are any, and is this something like a vibe coding tool, which doesn't sound like it, or where are the limitations, and what is the output that a designer can actually expect from it?
And can I add to that? Like, I'm curious, before we started talking about generative AI, right? Because we always had AI in games. There are tools that we would have used that are similar to explore space that we would have called like procedural content generation, right? Like we could have procedurally generated a bunch of things. So I'm wondering also, like, how do you use both, and at what point is it the AI part that it? Because when I hear what Ramon is asking, like, there's part of me that's like thinking, oh, one way a designer explores a space is you just procedurally generate a bunch and test it, right? And so I'm curious how you would say the difference between that approach and the like, it's got more intelligence or a model behind it in some other way.
Okay. All right. So several questions. So let's start with Ramon, your question. So how small is the sandbox that you can create new ideas? There is a sandbox, but we made it very extensible. So I would say 80%. Sometimes when a designer has an idea, like, oh, you can do 80 or 90% of it, but I would need this one piece of functionality. How we address that is that we have a tech engineer who will build that functionality to the engine, and after that you can configure it. But still, there's so many parameters of mixing different types of interactions of dragging or swapping or tapping. And then how the puzzle engine configuration happens is that you have just items, we call them blocks, like in a sort of puzzle game. You can configure all kinds of event systems. If this happens to this one, then something else happens. Are they matchable? Are they destroyable? Are they this and that? There's like long list of different kind of parameters. So I would say that even with that sandbox, it is actually, you can do so many different kinds of games that nobody has seen yet. But yes, we made it also extensible. If you really want to do something that is not yet added there, like one sort of bigger addition that we did half a year ago, we added physics. So you can actually have like water or liquids or something, and then play puzzle game, whatever the mechanism is, but then combined with physics objects. Like maybe there's a ball that you need to get these blocks away so that the ball can drop to a bowl or whatever that is. So like combining the physics and combining these different parameters, like it's a huge sandbox already.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then, but that's all these things are still done by designer, and it's more configuration. So AI is not playing a part there. But then let's talk more about that. Once we find a game that has a new mechanic and we need a lot of content for that, so we are using AI for level generation. And how we do that is that our level designers, they first designed, I think, 200 levels where we started the generation. And then we used that as a seed, trained an AI model, which can generate similar levels that they were already created. And then once we have the trained model, then the level designers can, depending what kind of levels they want to generate, they can give then a couple of like example levels. Like today, I want to create levels which are a little bit like this, but go a little bit crazier. Let's see what you come up with. So that's where, because it's a more sort of refined sort of problem area, there we can actually give AI freedom. Like you come up with the things as long as they stay in this area. But I just want to have a lot of them, and I pick the best ones, or I do modifications as a designer, or we give them to another AI, which is the level tester, which then plays through them, and then designer can look based on the results and decide, hey, actually that doesn't work or that works. So designer can work with AI in a lot of different phases of level development, by training the model, by giving the examples, modifying something with AI generated, and then test it with another AI, and then decide what they want to do. And what we also working now is creating, now that we have data from the mechanics that we are using in our current game, we are then using the player data to do prediction systems. So AI, the third AI model, is trying to say that, okay, I've seen these kind of things before, and because of architecture, machine learning actually has full transparency for how these mechanics actually work. We expect it to find correlations of good business performance for certain kind of designs that would be very hard for an analyst or a designer to spot.
You've been working in this space pretty early, right? Like 22, and like you said, you didn't necessarily start out to use machine learning or AI, but you definitely had ideas of what we could do to improve exploring the design space, getting out to players faster. So with that much experience, I'm curious a little bit about your journey. Like, how much did you have to do on your own? Right? Because today someone was going to start today, right? To be like, I'm going to build Puzzle Engine today. Maybe there's a bit more available. So I'm just curious about the journey and the kind of advice you would give to folks who let's say you're another casual game studio, right? And you're like, I'm not sure about AI. What do you tell those folks?
So I've been saying that I don't expect many companies to do same what we do, and there's several reasons. One of them is that if you already established larger studio, I know it from inside, having worked in those, is that the technology decisions are made based on the current cash cows. Doing anything in a new way has to benefit the ones which are bringing money to the company. And so one of the big things we did with Puzzle Engine, we totally changed what is the game architecture. That is not possible to go back in time for studios which were already established games. But for then other studios, like new studios, startups who are thinking about how to use AI, or in our case, it's more than just using AI, it's actually building the whole engine. We have people, me and our CTO, Tomi Huttila, who've been working with game technologies for long time. I wouldn't recommend to do like a similar things with first try. So there's a lot of things that we learned over the years by failure or success, and seeing like during my career, I've been involved in more than 100 game launches, like seeing what makes things difficult, what makes things easy. So there's a lot of experience needed to build something like this. But I would still encourage every company to think about what are the things where you want to, where AI could help you. And they can be quite different. Like now I'm really coming from the puzzle games angle. Our needs for improved solutions or advanced solutions are different than other studios have. And then there's the whole AI native game designs and all that. But I would really encourage new studios to think about like how to get their technology ready for AI, how to make it easy to integrate, and also the AI models are changing so fast that you need to really don't lock yourself into any specific model, make it easy to take them off, add a new ones because it's changing all the time. And then another one, get also your team ready for AI, because this AI is not there's a lot of opinions about AI, and if not everybody's on the same page what to do with AI, then it gets even harder.
Are there things that you had to build yourself that if you were starting from scratch today, you were like, okay, that now exists off the shelf?
Yes, there's one specific thing which I think happened very recently with Unity. So we very early on, we integrated some of the art AIs into Puzzle Engine. So that from the same, like actually from the level editor, the game configuration interface, you were able to generate AI art. And we had that very early on. And I think now Unity is bringing that feature. And now I just mentioned that when you you need to be prepared to switch models. Just a few months ago, we switched to layer.ai and we did the direct integration. I think they had on their website, there's actually success case or actually story about us integrating layer directly into the Puzzle Engine, and because they have a good way of having your custom styles used in art generation. So we thought that was actually better than what we had. So Yeah, it's great to see that Unity is bringing also that kind of features in. But again, I think that you of course really want to have tools which are optimized for your company, your studio's needs. Even if you get similar features coming up year or two later, then it's still there's an advantage that you are able to put everything in one UI and have end-to-end seamless workflows. Yeah, it is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder. So, for example, this Unity example, I always wonder if you're making such a big part of your appeal having AI at the core, if relying on however Unity implemented bringing the assets into the game makes sense in the first place versus just you having full control and authority on how to do it.
That's always the question, like a balancing, like there's pros and cons in both. Like do it yourself versus use existing things. Like for example, we didn't want to start building any AI tech, like a sort of technology. We really wanted to stay on the application layer, which is the puzzle engine, rather than doing any AI infrastructure. That would have been not good.
What have been some of the challenges, whether they were, you hinted at it, but I'm curious if you have any more specific examples of challenges with either the technology or with the team of learning, because there's both the tech changing or I don't know, maybe like the costs or something like, I don't know, but there's a technology side, but also like helping designers learn how to use these tools and think about them differently. So do you have any specific examples or advice in those areas?
For existing studios, it's a harder problem because you have the people who you have, and they have their own opinion on different things, and this is a totally new thing, and I think it can split. They can be different camps on things. But for us, being a startup, we very early realized that we want to be leveraging AI. So when we interview people, we are very direct about it, that we are using AI for this and this, and we want to use it more, but we of course want to have experts here. So just make it really clear from the beginning and finding out like what is the attitude towards using AI and so on. But so I think that's really important. There's no surprises for either side because they actually can be. For the team, what we have been growing with AI, and we have been growing as a team. So it's really came so early that it's natural part of what we do. But I have to say that every now and then it's good to remind, like, hey, have you looked at these and these recent services models? Could they be helping in this and that? So it's still easy to forget and just do things the old way. Yeah, the AI field is changing so fast that I think you need to keep your eyes open all the time.
That is definitely true.
Yeah, there's some sort of need to like every 2-3 months retry the things that you tried 2-3 months ago.
Yes, so that's right.
Does this work now? Does it work now?
That's right. You may evaluated something 6 months ago, and if that's your reason not to use it, then that might be.
Yeah, I am going through that constantly. Like I am going, even just in different areas. I was working on some DevOps infrastructure stuff that I had largely even used code assistants a year ago to help build, but that was like before Claude Code and everything else. And so when I went back to revise everything, I'm like, oh, I could redo all of this in this other way now because everything has changed. Everything has changed.
Changing.
Yeah.
That's one of the sort of turning points for me using AI for coding is that Niemi, who I mentioned, has been this is his third startup, and he's done game engine. One of the game engines was sold to Disney, and he's probably the smartest software guy I've ever worked with, and I worked with quite a few. Like the day when I heard that he's using AI to help him doing code, that was like right. If he finds that it's useful to use AI to do things.
I had a few similar friends where they were skeptical for a while, and then at one point they came in and they said, I will never be able to code without this tool again. And I was like, okay, all right. That means something.
Yeah, we have an excellent contractor. He's an excellent Rust engineer, and he would always deride vibe coding and send all of this like YouTube videos mocking vibe coding. And then the other day we figured out like a bug using LLMs, and he was part of the LLMs. I'm implementing what the LLMs are, and we're like, victory. API is here.
So it goes to that earlier point though of, I think like I said, I mean, you've been working in this space for a while. If for some folks in the industry, and I'm not sure how much this podcast reaches those folks, but if you're not up to speed, right? If your attitude around AI was created a year or two ago, what's possible today can be very different.
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh, I don't know if it was a year or so ago you tested and you're like, as an example, you're like, I tried to make a puzzle game and it didn't work. And then you're like, I guess it will never work. I don't know. You might want to come back and retest that, for example. Like, I'm assuming, do you feel that way, that like the capabilities of the types of games you're making or the type of things you're able to do have changed over these 2 to 3 years? Because I feel like we've seen that.
Yeah. Okay, actually, I came up with, so if you're in a situation that you've done your research on AI 6 months ago and your question is like how to get started, like what is the best way to check what's going on right now? My advice is that ask AI.
Yeah. Pretty self-aware at this point.
Yeah. What was your question again?
I just wonder how, if you've seen capabilities change, how you see capabilities change. Like when you were evaluating early on, you're creating puzzle engine. Can it make this type of puzzle? Yes or no? So do you have more capabilities today than you did before? Because I would assume that would be true. I'm curious how you're seeing it.
Yeah. Even LLMs have been advancing so much, and then they can do code, so then they can also do a lot of other things. And actually, something what we are now actually going back to can AI create games? So what we are now looking into is that we want to make the mini game production pipeline as efficient as possible. And like our designers can already use Puzzle Engine. Our marketing team, or they haven't been doing game design that much, but they, of course, mini games are like some of the big tools, enablers for them to do different things. What we are now looking into is that making agents which are helping you to do mini games with Puzzle Engine. And going back to the thing what we talked about earlier, now that the sort of underlying engine is tested and solid, then you can't do that many things wrong. You can't break things that easily, even if AI is helping you to, because the layer that you're working on when you're configuring logic is quite small. And then also, like now, I'm also starting to feel more, let's say, positive about the idea of actually doing an AI agent, which is actually also doing the configurations based on your ideas. And why is it that would be really awesome for us? Because it still would be, again, production level stuff, because it's only doing configurations rather than actually code.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is like you've made it such that the output is always some sort of reasonable working artifact. There's guaranteed.
Instead of asking AI to code a game or code modules of the game, find the best pipeline for using AI to generate configurations which are compatible with the interface, what we have and what is tested. That is where I think we will be going towards.
If I have a question, I realize I probably should have asked much earlier in our conversation because we're getting close to the end, is that, and I think I know the answer based on our, but when a lot of people think about AI, right, they're thinking about large language models these days, or they're thinking about art or video generation, right?
Yeah.
And one of the criticisms at times is around how good the logic is, right? So can a large language model count the number of R's in the word strawberry, as an example is given, right? So like, how well does it do math or other logic puzzles? And in the video side, for example, we've actually seen some interesting cases where how well it does with physics, right? And world modeling. So the reason I'm asking this question is I think some people who might listen to this podcast and approach it, when they think about using generative AI for puzzles, they might get confused to think generative AI isn't good at logic, so how would it be good at puzzles? And if I understand, part of your point is, look, we're building an engine where we use a lot of the designers to build some of the logic, and then AI enhances on it. So we're still relying on the humans for some of the core logic, and the AI can replicate that, go from there. Is that the right answer, or is there something else
So let's go back to the example what we are, or the use case we are now looking into, like making mini games. And also the point that you mentioned that AI is like thinking about AI, how good is it with logic and so on. AI is also very creative, as we have noticed, either because it hallucinates or it makes mistakes or whatever, or it just ideation. Often it's good to just generate loads of ideas rather than worrying about the quality of ideas too early. That's just a basic concepting or ideation principles. I think AI, human and AI, is like a really dynamic duo of doing like a generating creative ideas and doing back and forth. And so I think that's like a proven case. I think a lot of people are doing that
Yes.
already. So if we go to the mini games, like it all starts from the ideas, and even there AI can already be helping, like, okay, what kind of mini games I would be doing. And now with like the AI video generation, AI is being like evolving really fast, being able to actually visualize the idea very fast with AI, again, the dynamic duo of human and AI. Then once you have a visual idea, what kind of AI you might need to actually tell you, okay, if that's your idea, how to then convert that into mini game in our context. And we would then have an AI which understands what is our technology like, what can be done, what cannot be done, and being like a consultant for the design. Hey, yeah, you can do that, but you can't do that. How about this? And then maybe there's another AI agent which is then actually helping to put together the actual minigame idea. So I think it's not just like, I don't think we should be limited to there's one AI and it can solve the whole thing. But you can work with multiple AIs which are specialized for different things and make that the whole pipeline of doing things. And I think I expect these kind of things to be happening for a lot of other use cases in games industry and other industries.
This dynamic duo, I think, rhymes with what I think is one of the more common fundamental patterns in how people work with AI, which is that these models are really good at creating plausible solutions, but not necessarily correct ones. You always need like a verifier layer, whether it's a compiler or a type check, or in the case of the design, a human to give you that feedback. But the fact that they can generate so many plausible solutions makes it very powerful, as long as you have a verifying layer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and in our case, when we generate levels, like that, we are not asking AI to solve the levels. We are asking AI to generate a lot of levels, which are then validated by another AI trying to play them. And it's the sort of the sum of all of the results and data what the designers is, which is helping them to make a decision. Yeah.
It reminds me, I've worked with a lot of different game designers over the years, and definitely like any other product design or artistic creative, there's different philosophies and styles, right? Like I think some folks, if you're not in the game industry, you think there's this type of game designer who has this innate sense of what's good, right? They have very good taste and they have like very great insights, and they're like, oh, I just have this amazing, I don't know, they wake up in the middle of the night and I know the best game. But some of the favorite game designers I've worked with, in fact, one of my favorite game designers I worked with, when I asked him, like, how did he work through to come up with some of these game designs, he's like, I'm not that smart. I just work through all of the options until I find one that is good. There's only so many choices, and we take all the combinations, and eventually I figure out which ones work. And that is also a way we do game design. And to me, it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is really exploring a design space, like making it easier to explore that design space very rapidly.
That's right. And going back to this ideation, like a design thinking,
right?
If you're familiar with the design thinking process, like it starts from generating a lot of ideas. But if you limit it, like I know already what the right thing is, and I know there are designers who at least pretend they know the thing from the beginning to the end, and it can succeed, but it can very often also fail. So I think at some point it's good to really go for the volume of ideas, and I think it's so easy to do with AI. And even if you are the one who's telling or evaluating if that's a good idea or bad idea, but actually when we started, not just because of AI, but just the ability of doing a lot of core game mechanics and actually a lot of art styles and everything what we tested. I was also curious to know how our design team is taking that, because they need to, I expect to test a lot, but we found that they were actually really happy because they didn't need to pretend they are knowing everything from the beginning. They actually enjoyed, oh wait, I can validate this, I can try this, I can validate this.
Right.
That actually made it easier for them because they were still in control of what's going on.
I wanted to share it positively because I also feel, definitely for players and certainly for others outside of the game industry, often you only end up seeing, you see the final product. You don't see all of the failed game designs that went into it. And I think sometimes we can be think that, oh, you just start with that initial idea and you knew it and it was perfect from the beginning and you just made it. No, there are a lot of sketches and drafts and designs that do not work, and you have to go through lots of those to often find the best game, even in a normal traditional human process.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, enabling you to create more iterations faster, I think is really a good thing. Just a good thing.
We didn't touch that much on the ad side, but I'm curious to hear a bit more on how you're working on that side, because it still fits in that narrative of trying more things, right? Trying ads is a way of testing this beyond the game designer, how much of a market is there for what you're building. So I'm curious how you're using AI for that.
Yeah. So I think that probably a lot of marketing teams are now testing ad creatives especially now with all the awesome video generation tools. That's an obvious thing. But for us, it continues further than that. By the way, if you're not familiar with fake ads or misleading ads, what kind of problem is that? Just take any leading puzzle game, go to the App Store reviews, go to the 1-star section, and count how many of the people give 1 star and they mention misleading ads. And they don't need to be like playable ads, or as long as, because with the ad creative hints that this game has this thing and then it doesn't. The problem what it creates is that people are churning. But why are game studios still doing misleading ads? I think Playrix released an article 1.5 years ago or something, and we actually internally tested the same thing, is that there is a business case for misleading ads. The sort of decrease, or you can lower CPI enough to compensate the problem that a lot of people leave. And it's about, I think 20% was roughly the sort of the reduction of cost per retained user if you use misleading ads. But obviously it's better if you actually have the stuff that you are advertising. So if you have the minigame, and that's where we're going for, not just creating a video of a great game feature, but actually have it in the game. And that's what is enabled by the puzzle engine. And now we really want to make it like a proper factory where we can test a lot, generate a lot. And that's like one of the things we are now looking into. Can we accelerate even getting from the idea to, especially help the marketeers to get an idea to a minigame if they are not familiar with configuring game logic and so on. So I think the whole pipeline of trying what ads work and then make it easy to add it to the game.
So making misleading ads leading.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very cool. What have you tried? So we've talked on the levels, we've talked on the trying mechanics, we've talked on the ads. Are there areas where you've tried to, hey, I'm going to try the same, produce a lot of content or a lot of options and then see what works, but that approach didn't work? Are there areas where fundamentally you think AI has been pretty bad at when you've pointed at?
Yeah, probably for coding, you probably wouldn't use the same approach. But it's, I don't know if there's any sort of cases where just generate a lot of stuff and see what sort of sticks. I think it's more related to the creative, what kind of ad creative works, what kind of mechanic works, and it has worked for those, and we haven't tried it on any area where it didn't work. So I think we are pretty happy about that. But then talking about using AI in game development for other areas, there's a long list of things. It's not enough time to put AI to all the places where it is likely going to be making a difference. Like one of them is personalization, helping AI to identify what segments you should be having, making even like a per player personalization, like really making the game experience the best for the specific player. To me, that's like a no-brainer use case. If you think about any sort of video service, streaming service, like they have these recommendation engines. So the idea is not a new one, but doing it in a context of a one game, I'm like, certainly things will go there. Then like any analytics, of having analytics agents which are identifying, exploring data, spotting things like, hey, here's something going on, you should look at this, and this is my suggestion what to do. Like that's another, I think different kind of analytics systems will be leveraging a lot. And then of course customer service, I think that's already, I've been talking to a few of them, and they are like, I can imagine the level of quality of customer service in games going to be really improving, if not already now, in the future. So there's just like every area of game development, I think AI will have a significant impact.
Very well. We are at time. So any last comments, Tomi, or shouts? Where can people reach out to you? Where can they play your games?
Let me think what would be
or just any parting word?
Maybe I'll just repeat what I said earlier. My advice for studios is that really think about what are the AI use cases that is helping your studio, and it really depends on what kind of games you do. And so think about how you should be handling AI in your technology, but also think about how you should be getting your team ready or adopting the AI the best way. That's another area which is not easy to solve, because people have really different opinions about the AI. So get your teams and tech ready for AI, because it is going to be significantly changing every area of game development. So that is already happening. That is very clear where things are going.
Very well. Tomi, thank you so much for your time. Love to talk to you, and see you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Great. It was great being here. So talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the full episode. We really hope you enjoyed the discussion. It would help us out a ton if you subscribe to the show on your platform of choice, as well as shared it with folks you think would find it useful. You can always check out playingwithinference.com to get in contact with us, join our Discord, or just find the links to the episodes. See you next week.